All right, so this one has a t squared. You do this exactly the same way you've done all the others. What's your first step? Yeah, that's a good start. So D equals 5t squared. I'd like you to then write down what you know, which is excellent. Then what? Now, just before we solve it, what do you want your answer to look like? Okay. T equals. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to think of. Okay, get that in your brain that this is what I want it to look like at the end, and it makes your life a lot easier. What's the first step? Divide both sides by 5, which will give you 64 equals t squared.
I was trying to use my foot.
I've got that textbook. Or my wife does. Oops, step over. Don't choke me. No, I didn't pause it. It was fun this way. Okay, so we've got 64 equals t squared. Now, all we've been doing, every time we do these, every time, if we have t times 2, how do we undo that? You divide it. If we have t plus 5, how do we undo that? We are using the inverse operation. Whatever we do has to undo what they've done to it. What have they done to the t? They've squared it. How do we undo that? Yeah, we find the root of the square, which means where did it come from? Okay? So we find the square root. So if I was doing it the way I'm doing it at the moment and writing in this, like what I've done, I would just write down there that. And that says I'm going to find the square root of both of those. Now the square root of t squared is t. The square root of 64 is 8. And that is your answer. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay? Just don't be afraid when you see squares and square roots and stuff like that. If they had, honestly, if they had this, if that was part of it, if it had square root of 15 times x, how would you undo, oh, sorry, that's a bad example. I'm a bad person. Let's do this. If they had that on the question, and they said square root of x is 3, what would you do? Yes, you do whatever you have to do to undo that. How do you undo a square root? You square it. So you would square both sides. So you'd have x, well, you'd have x squared, but it'd be under a square root, and they cancel each other out. So you end up with x. That's the whole point. Whatever you do to that is to get rid of the square root. So by squaring it, you're getting rid of the square root. No, because you've got to square that side as well. X equals what? 3 squared is 9. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sure. Okay.